Jason and Rachel met in college, their connection instant and passionate. They married soon after graduation, building a life together filled with shared dreams and deep love. For 25 years, Jason believed their marriage was unbreakable. He cherished Rachel, showering her with affection and thoughtful gestures. Their 25th wedding anniversary was a testament to their bond. He gifted her a necklace adorned with diamonds, a symbol of his unwavering love. The restaurant was upscale, its ambiance sophisticated and intimate. Soft lighting cast a warm glow over the elegantly set tables, while the hum of quiet conversations and the clinking of glasses filled the air. Jason sat in a shadowed corner, his heart heavy, as he watched Rachel and a man he had never seen before. Rachel's laughter echoed through the restaurant, a sound that had once brought him joy, but now felt like a knife twisting in his chest. She leaned in closer to her companion, her fingers lightly touching the necklace Jason had given her. The diamonds sparkled, mocking him with their brilliance. Jason's mind raced with a torrent of emotions: anger, betrayal, sorrow. He clenched his fists under the table, his knuckles turning white. How could she? The woman he had loved and trusted for a quarter of a century was now sharing intimate moments with another man. His thoughts were a whirlwind, replaying every moment they had shared, every promise they had made. He focused on their conversation, straining to hear their words over the din of the restaurant. Rachel's companion, a tall man with a confident demeanor, was speaking in a low, seductive voice. Jason caught fragments of their conversation, each word a blow to his already wounded heart. "You're wearing it," the man said, his eyes gleaming as he looked at the necklace. "It looks beautiful on you." Rachel's laughter rang out again, light and carefree. "Jason gave it to me for our anniversary," she said, her voice dripping with false affection. The man smirked, his arrogance palpable. "Oh, your husband is quite romantic. He gives you gifts while I truly satisfy you." Jason felt a surge of rage. He wanted to storm over to their table to confront them both, but he forced himself to stay seated. His anger mingled with a profound sadness, the realization that the woman he loved had been unfaithful. He watched as Rachel placed her hand on the man's arm, her fingers lightly tracing his muscles. "He's a loser, babe," she said. Her voice full of contempt. They both laughed together, their mockery a cruel symphony that echoed in Jason's mind. Jason's heart pounded in his chest, a mixture of adrenaline and heartbreak. He felt the heat rise in his face, his vision blurring with unshed tears. He took a deep breath, willing himself to stay calm. He couldn't let them see him like this. He couldn't give them the satisfaction of knowing how deeply they had hurt him. The minutes dragged on, each one an eternity of pain. Jason struggled to remain unnoticed, his eyes never leaving Rachel and her lover. He noted every detail, the way she smiled at the man, the touch of her hand on his arm, the intimacy they shared. His mind raced with thoughts of revenge, of how he could make them pay for their betrayal. Despite the emotional turmoil, Jason knew he had to stay. He needed to see the truth with his own eyes, to confront the reality of Rachel's infidelity. The restaurant's ambiance, once a backdrop for romance, now felt suffocating. The quiet conversations and clinking glasses seemed to mock his pain. Jason's hands trembled as he took another deep breath. His resolve hardening, he would not let this betrayal destroy him. He would gather the strength to face Rachel and her lover, to make them understand the gravity of their actions. He felt a cold fury settle over him, a determination to reclaim his dignity and to show them the consequences of their cruelty. As the evening wore on, Jason remained in his shadowed corner, his heart aching but his mind clear. He had seen enough. The betrayal was real, and now it was time to act. He stood up, his movements slow and deliberate, and walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind the painful tableau of his shattered marriage. Jason drove home in a daze, the events of the evening replaying in his mind like a broken record. The streetlights cast eerie shadows on the empty road, mirroring the darkness and enveloping his heart. His thoughts were a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and disbelief. How could Rachel betray him like this? The woman he had loved and cherished for 25 years now reduced to a cruel stranger in his eyes. As he gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white with tension, Jason felt a torrent of emotions surged through him. The ache in his chest was almost unbearable, a physical manifestation of his broken heart. He recalled their anniversary dinner, the way Rachel had smiled as he fastened the diamond necklace around her neck, her eyes sparkling with what he thought was love. It all seemed like a cruel joke now. Memories flooded his mind, each one a painful reminder of what he had lost. He remembered the day they met, the laughter they shared, the dreams they had built together. He had always believed their marriage was unbreakable, a fortress of love and trust. But now, that fortress lay in ruins, shattered by Rachel's betrayal. By the time Jason pulled into his driveway, his sorrow had given way to a cold, steely resolve. He would not let Rachel's infidelity destroy him. He would take control, reclaim his dignity, and make them both pay for their cruelty. He would plan his revenge with the same meticulous care he had once devoted to their marriage. Inside the house, Jason sat down at his desk, the familiar surroundings offering little comfort. He pulled out a notebook and began to write. His mind focused on the task at hand. He listed everything he knew about Rachel's lover, every detail he had gathered from their encounter at the restaurant. He needed more information, and he knew just how to get it. Jason made a series of phone calls, his voice calm and measured. He contacted a private investigator, a man he had worked with before on discreet matters. He explained the situation, outlining what he needed: surveillance on Rachel and her lover, detailed reports on their movements, and any vulnerabilities they might have. The investigator agreed, his voice professional and reassuring. Jason felt a sense of grim satisfaction as he hung up the phone. He was taking control, turning his pain into a weapon. He spent the next few days gathering information, piecing together the details of Rachel's affair. He reviewed the investigator's reports, noting the times and places where they met, the patterns in their behavior. Jason's approach was methodical, his mind sharp with purpose. He researched legal options, ensuring that his plan would not only exact revenge, but also protect his interests. He consulted with lawyers, preparing for the divorce that would inevitably follow. He made copies of financial records, safeguarding his assets against any attempts by Rachel to claim them. Each step in his plan was carefully considered, every detail meticulously arranged. He knew he had to be patient to wait for the right moment to strike. His anger was a cold, controlled fire, fueling his determination. He watched Rachel closely, maintaining the facade of a loving husband while hiding the storm brewing within him. Jason felt a twisted sense of empowerment as his plan took shape. He would not be a victim of Rachel's betrayal. He would be the architect of their downfall, the one who controlled their fate. He imagined the look on Rachel's face when she realized the extent of his knowledge, the depth of his resolve. It gave him a grim satisfaction, a sense of justice in the midst of his pain. One evening, as Jason reviewed the latest report from the investigator, he felt a surge of confidence. The pieces were all in place, the plan ready to be executed. He knew the timing had to be perfect, the execution flawless. He could not afford any mistakes, not now, when everything was on the line. Jason's determination was unwavering. He would confront Rachel and her lover, expose their betrayal, and reclaim his life. He would show them both that they had underestimated him, that they had misjudged his strength. As he closed his notebook, a sense of calm settled over him. He was ready. The plan was set, and soon they would face the consequences of their actions. With a final deep breath, Jason steeled himself for the days to come. The path ahead was clear, the goal within reach. He would emerge from this stronger, unbroken, and victorious. Jason sat in his home office, the dim light of his desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. The private investigator, Mr. Davis, had proven to be exceptionally thorough. Over the past few weeks, he had provided Jason with a steady stream of evidence, each piece meticulously documented. Photos, recorded conversations, detailed reports of Rachel's movements, all were laid out in front of Jason, painting a grim picture of her infidelity. Mr. Davis had been discreet, following Rachel and her lover without raising suspicion. He captured their meetings at various locations, clandestine dinners, secret rendezvous in parks, and even a weekend getaway at a nearby resort. The evidence was irrefutable. Rachel was not only unfaithful, but deeply entwined with this other man. Each evening, after receiving the latest report from Mr. Davis, Jason would lock himself in his office and go through the evidence. He studied every detail, every photograph, every recorded conversation. His initial shock and sorrow had hardened into a cold, calculated determination. He noted the times and places where they met, the intimacy they shared, the casual way they discussed their future together, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. Jason maintained a calm, faceted home. He interacted with Rachel as if nothing had changed, hiding his anger and heartbreak beneath a mask of normalcy. They ate dinner together, discussed their days, and even made plans for the upcoming holidays. Rachel seemed completely unaware of the turmoil raging within him, her demeanor carefree and content. The tension beneath the surface was palpable. Jason's every word and action were carefully measured. He could feel his anger simmering, but he kept it tightly controlled. He was a man on a mission, and he could not afford to let his emotions betray him. As the weeks passed, Jason meticulously planned the trap that would bring Rachel's betrayal to light. He knew he had to be precise to ensure that every detail was in place. He coordinated with Mr. Davis, setting up the final confrontation. It would take place at the very restaurant where he had first discovered their affair, a fitting stage for the revelation. The evening of the confrontation arrived, shrouded in a tense silence. Jason's heart pounded in his chest as he followed Rachel to the secluded house. The drive was torturous, each mile filled with a tumult of emotions, anger, betrayal, and a cold resolve. He kept a safe distance, ensuring she wouldn't notice him trailing her. The road wound through dense woods, the trees closing in like silent sentinels. Jason's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He remembered the moments of their life together, each memory now tainted by her infidelity. The joy of their wedding day, the birth of their children, the countless anniversaries and vacations, all overshadowed by the betrayal he had discovered. His jaw tightened as he drove, the weight of what he was about to do pressing down on him. Rachel's car finally pulled into the driveway of a small, secluded house. Jason parked a short distance away, watching as she got out, her movements casual and unhurried. She wore a dress he recognized, one he had always loved seeing her in. The sight of her, so familiar yet so foreign, stirred a deep ache within him. She glanced around briefly before heading to the door, her steps light and carefree. Inside the house, Rachel moved with practice these. She set down her purse and took a moment to check her reflection in a nearby mirror, smoothing her hair and adjusting her dress. She hummed softly to herself, a tune that used to fill their home with warmth, but now only deep in Jason's sense of betrayal. Jason approached the house, his steps slow and deliberate. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, sharpening his senses. He paused at the door, listening to the sounds inside. Rachel was in the kitchen, pouring a glass of wine, her demeanor relaxed and content. She had no idea he was there, just a few feet away, ready to shatter the illusion she had built. With a deep breath, Jason knocked on the door, the sound echoing in the quiet night. He heard Rachel's footsteps approaching, the click of her heels on the hardwood floor. The door opened, and she stood there, her eyes widening and shock as she saw him. "Jason?" she stammered, her voice filled with surprise. "What are you doing here?" Jason didn't respond immediately. He stepped inside, his eyes locking onto hers. The tension was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words. Rachel took a step back, her confusion turning to fear as she saw the determination in his eyes. "Who is it, Rachel?" A voice called from deeper within the house. A moment later, her lover appeared in the hallway, his expression turning to one of alarm as he saw Jason standing there. Jason's gaze shifted to the man, his eyes cold and unyielding. "I think you both know why I'm here," he said, his voice steady but laced with anger. Rachel's lover, a tall man with a confident demeanor, tried to regain his composure. "Jason, let's talk about this rationally. There's nothing rational about betrayal." Jason interrupted, his voice rising. He pulled out the envelope of evidence, thrusting it towards Rachel. "Look at it. Look at what you've done." Rachel took the envelope with trembling hands, her face pale. She opened it, her eyes scanning the photographs and reports, her breath hitched, tears welling up as she realized the extent of his knowledge. "Jason, I don't." Jason cut her off, his voice breaking. "Don't you dare try to explain this away. I trusted you, Rachel. I loved you. And this is how you repay me." Her lover stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Jason, please, we didn't mean for it to happen this way. Let's just sit down and shut up. Jason roared, his anger boiling over. He turned back to Rachel, his eyes burning with hurt and rage. I gave you everything, and you threw it all away for him. Rachel's tears flowed freely now, her body trembling. Jason, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. It just happened, Jason echoed, his voice filled with disbelief. You made a choice, Rachel. Every time you met him, every lie you told me, you chose this. The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Rachel's lover stood frozen, his confident facade shattered. Rachel sobbed quietly, her remorse evident, but offering little comfort to Jason. He turned to Rachel's lover, his gaze piercing. And you, he said, his voice cold. You think you've won something, don't you? But you've only shown your true colors. You're a coward hiding in the shadows, taking what isn't yours. You both deserve each other. The man opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The arrogance he once displayed had crumbled, replaced by a look of fear and regret. He glanced at Rachel, his expression pleading, but she could only look away, her tears blurring her vision. Jason took a step back, his gaze sweeping over the room one last time. I've said all I needed to say, he concluded. You'll hear from my lawyer soon, and Rachel, don't bother to come home. Your things will be packed and sent to you. We're done. With those final words, Jason turned and walked out of the house. The door closed behind him with a resounding click, a symbolic end to a chapter of his life. As he stepped into the cool night air, he felt a sense of closure begin to wash over him. The confrontation had been painful, but it was necessary. He had faced the betrayal head-on, and now he could begin to heal. The drive home was eerily quiet, the road stretching out before him like a path to a new beginning. Jason's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, but there was a sense of clarity amid the chaos. He had taken control of his life, reclaiming his dignity and setting the stage for a future free from deceit. Back in the house, Rachel and her lover remained in stunned silence. The reality of their actions and the consequences they now faced weighed heavily on them. Rachel's sobs had subsided into quiet whimpers, her heart aching with regret. She knew she had lost Jason forever, and the realization was almost too much to bear. Her lover stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do or say. The confident facade he had always maintained was shattered, replaced by a deep sense of fear and guilt. He looked at Rachel, his mind racing with thoughts of what their future might hold, if there even was one. Rachel, he finally managed to say, his voice trembling, what are we going to do? Rachel shook her head, her tears falling onto the floor. I don't know, she whispered, her voice broken. I don't know. The silence that followed was suffocating, filled with the weight of their actions and the consequences that lay ahead. They both knew there was no easy way out of this, no simple resolution. They had crossed a line, and now they had to face the fallout. Jason, on the other hand, felt a renewed sense of purpose as he arrived home. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it. The reckoning had come and gone, leaving him with a sense of closure and the strength to move forward. As he walked into his now quiet house, he felt the first stirrings of hope for a future built on truth and integrity. The divorce proceedings began swiftly. Jason, resolute and focused, met with his lawyer, Mr. Hamilton, to outline the terms. The division of assets was straightforward. Jason had meticulously prepared, ensuring Rachel would have little leverage. He was firm but fair, determined to close this chapter of his life with dignity. Sitting across from Rachel in the sterile conference room, Jason felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Rachel's face was drawn, her eyes red from crying. She glanced at him occasionally, but the weight of her actions hung heavily between them. Mr. Hamilton spoke clearly and concisely, detailing the settlement. Rachel would keep the house, but Jason retained his investments and savings. The agreement was fair, but it underscored the finality of their separation. As the papers were signed, Jason felt a strange sense of liberation. The ties that once bound them were now severed, leaving him free to forge a new path. For Rachel, the consequences were harsh. The life she had known crumbled around her. Friends distanced themselves, and whispers of her affair spread through their social circles. She tried to salvage her life, reaching out to Jason in moments of desperation, but he remained steadfast. The betrayal was too deep, the wounds too fresh. Jason focused on rebuilding his life. He immersed himself in new hobbies, finding solace in activities he had long neglected. He took up painting, filling canvases with vibrant colors that mirrored his journey towards healing. He joined a hiking club, discovering the beauty of nature and the peace it brought him. Through these activities, Jason met new people. He forged friendships based on mutual interests, untainted by the shadows of his past. He found himself laughing more, enjoying the simple pleasures of life. Each day was a step forward, a move towards a future filled with possibilities. One evening, while attending a local art exhibit, Jason struck up a conversation with a woman named Deborah. She was kind and genuine. Her presence balmed to his wounded heart. They shared stories of their lives, their laughter echoing through the gallery. For the first time in a long while, Jason felt a spark of hope for what lay ahead. The months passed, and Jason's journey towards healing continued. He embraced the changes in his life, finding strength in his resilience. He transformed his pain into personal growth, emerging stronger and more self-assured. The man who once stood on the brink of despair had found his footing, stepping boldly into his new beginning. As the seasons changed, so did Jason. He was no longer defined by the betrayal that had shattered his world. Instead, he was defined by his ability to rise above it, to rebuild and reclaim his life. His story was one of resilience and renewal, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to heal.